Well, 4 pints later, and Richmond has pulled off a victory against West Coast at the MCG. It was a pretty tight game, actually. I tell you, both games have been really good. But I watched this weekend the Geelong. What was it playing? I'm trying to think who was playing Geelong. But that was a very Brisbane Geelong game was very good. And the Richmond West Coast game was really good too. Except I think Richmond should have won by more, because I think the umpiring was abysmal. Really bad against Richmond. And there were a few Richmond supporters behind me and they agreed. But again, we are Richmond supporters, so of course we're going to agree. Anyway, 14 degrees down in Melbourne. It was cold. So happy I'm up here. Yeah, I think actually the West Coast Eagles did pretty well, considering they were, they were playing at the MCG, which is bloody frigid. Top of 14 degrees. It's pretty bad conditions and wet. So greasy football. So that was pretty hard for them. So they actually did all right. But gee, I tell you, a lot better up here. I think the people behind me were locals, because they didn't, when I told them about the weather, they were a bit shocked, because there's a bit of a disconnect. If you live up here, you think this is normal, but it's not. There is a winter down south and it's pretty vicious. And I was actually looking at a video today, quite a good video about the more auto driving technologies happening with the likes of Tesla and also Google under the name of Waymo. That's the company that is working on the self-driving technology. It's very exciting, but I saw a BBC documentary on it. And they were talking about there's a cyclist that was actually killed on an Uber. It was an Uber car being tested in Arizona. Arizona has been very friendly to companies that wish to basically test this technology of self-driving. They've made it a lot easier than, say, California. California basically seems to be telling any businesses to F off, because all they want to do is tax the hilt out of them and make them work under incredibly tough regulations. So they're basically a business unfriendly state now. But Arizona has decided to take up the challenge and has now made it easier for companies to do that. But there has been a downside, and that is that there was a cyclist who just seemed to be suicidal, and they basically cycled right across a main highway, and the car that had the self-driving software and hardware, they didn't detect them, and as a consequence, they died. They splattered them. Now that's bad enough, but the upshot of this is that the Uber company had disabled a mechanism to make sure that the braking would come in under a situation like that. So they basically made the software much more dangerous than it should have been, simply as a commercial decision to make the self-driving software look better. And it's actually had the opposite effect, because they've got egg on their face now, and they've got a dead cyclist. But for some unknown reason, they cannot be prosecuted, and I find that extraordinary, because they have got to be culpable for the death of this cyclist. And the cyclist was basically dumb as for cycling right across a highway. But if it had been a human driver, they would have taken evasive action. So to that extent, I think that they are culpable. Nice day. Second last week before I head off. Well, a little longer than that, but close to. So just getting a few things tidied up. I tried to get my bank account worked out in so I could actually directly deposit money, wire it across to my Vietnamese bank account. Lucky I set it up when I did, because the Vietnamese government changed the laws early July so that now you can't have a bank account over there unless you're a resident, have residential status. But seeing I've already got the card, I'm okay. So people with existing accounts are fine, but I just got in by a couple of months basically. So yeah, so it was a touch and go, but I got one, and the trouble is I can't remember the damn password. I tried to reset my password, but when I did that, they then sent me an SMS, and of course it'd be to my old Vietnamese mobile number, which will be inactive anyway now because I've been out of the country too long. I doubt whether it'll still be active when I get back. It'll be about 4 months or so, 4 or 5 months by that time. I think 3 months is how long it might last if you get back in the country in time. But that happened once, but this time I've been out too long, so I'll have to get a new mobile number. Not a problem. I can still test the transfer while I'm over in Vietnam, just to see if it works, because it's actually, they give you a decent exchange rate, so it's quite a decent way of transferring money, but I'll have to wait until then before I try it. Alright, progressing with my preparations for my trip. I got the travel insurance sorted yesterday, because Fast Cover, who I've used before, it's an online travel insurance cover, they had a sale on, and luckily they had one yesterday which lasted a little over 24 hours. So I think I got about a 10% discount on it. So I ended up, had to pay I think about $130 for a basic medical cover for the Spanish part of the trip, and about $66 for the Vietnamese portion. And that's just your basic medical, doesn't include luggage, doesn't include cancellations and all that other stuff that you get with a full insurance policy. The reason being, I am actually covered for all that stuff on my credit card. I have a Platinum Visa card through ANZ, and that provides me with that sort of cover. And if I do need to claim on that, it'll take a while to get the money, but there's no rush. But more importantly, the medical insurance is the one I wanted to take out a dedicated insurance for, because if I'm laid up for whatever reason, an accident or some unforeseen medical condition, I don't have to go and try to get the money from my credit card to pay the bills. I can just contact the medical insurer, and they can look after it for me and just take a lot of stress out of it. So I think it's well worth the extra money to do that. So I've basically got a combination of two lots of insurance. I've mixed and matched in effect, and the credit card insurance will be for everything else apart from basic medical cover, which I think is essential to have that a dedicated cover for that. And anyway, that's sorted, and as I say, I got it at a sale price, which is always good, because I suspected one may have come up soon, and it did. So that was good timing. And I'm progressing slowly with learning a bit more Spanish as I go along. Know the essential word, which is the mussels, as in seafood mussels, and I'm using word association for that. I'm using an English phrase so I can actually remember it, otherwise I wouldn't have a hope. So which I've just forgotten again. I've been reinforcing it all morning, and now as I'm talking and walking I can't remember it, but it's more solidly in my mind than it was, and that's the thing. You just got to basically reinforce it, and and it's got that quirk. It's actually, if you spelled it out in English, you'd be pronouncing a J, which you don't do. It's like in Jose, you don't say the J, and the same thing with Spanish. As a matter of fact, just pronounce it as an H. And there's a double L there, which is not pronounced our way, but as a Y. So that's another little thing I've learned as I've just kept going through Spanish. You know, you become a second nature eventually, and that's if I could do that with the grammar, I'd be laughing. Please consider subscribing to my channel if you think there's anything there of use to you, or entertainment, or whatever. And either do that or give me a thumbs up, or if you're feeling really energetic, do both. That'd be great. But please don't ignore me. That's the worst thing you can do on YouTube, is be ignored.